And welcome to Patriot's Lament, where for the next hour we are going to be talking about liberty and our role in it. I'm Steve Floyd, the man behind the microphone. Joining me in the studio this morning from Bighorn Enterprises, one of the sponsors of the show, here's Josh Bennett. Good morning, Josh.
Good morning, Steve.
How are you doing today?
Very nice. Wondering when the warm weather you keep talking about is going to come.
Well, it's kind of like when the budget cuts are going to come for the federal government. We'll just talk about them a little bit more, and maybe we'll talk about the warm weather. And eventually, if we get enough people that, voting in enough people who want the warm weather, then
maybe we could talk to Ron Paul. He said he'd cut $1 trillion. Maybe he'd give us 50 degrees.
How would he cut the $1 million? Would he do it or trillion or whatever? Is he going to do it by executive order? Something that he has said that he
departments
will not use.
He can cut departments, right?
I believe he can.
He can definitely cut overseas spending.
It's interesting. I had a really cool conversation with my wife last night in which she said that what she'd like to do is have somebody go in there and just fix it financially. I'm like, honey, what you're advocating is dictatorship. She's like, well, send me to do it. Well, I don't think the country would run like our household would run. I mean, it would be, it works well on a small scale to have one person in charge here, but...
Oh, it's kind of like the same thing because you have, instead of your kids, they always want something. You have 300 million people that want something. Unfortunately, we don't know how to say no.
Yeah, that's one thing as parents, we do know how to say no. We can say, no, sorry, you can't have any more candy. You've already had some today.
That's actually pretty easy.
Yeah.
Say that.
But can't do that on the government side for some reason, and people come to you with your hands out. I mean, you look at it even at the local level, at the borough. It's like, how many of the meetings are focused on money that they're going to be giving away to somebody?
All through the week on your show, people calling all through the week saying, well, we need something needs to happen here. We need new laws. We need new monies. We need this and that. I don't know if you saw, I wanted to get on this last week, but we didn't have time. The state had a conference over the overcrowding of our jails in the state of Alaska and the cost and the need to do something about it and blah, blah, blah. So I was reading that, and I thought, it was 2 days, I think the conference was, and I thought, well, that's really neat. Maybe these people are going to wake up. Maybe they'll say, why do we have overcrowded jails? And then they didn't let me down because the very next day I saw where there were a couple senators wanting to pass a law against bath salts, those evil bath salts, which boggled my mind. I think it was someone in the Angers Police Department. I don't remember exactly who, police chief or something. He said these bath salts are already illegal, misdemeanor in Anchorage, but we need to make these a felony for sure. What? Okay. Our jails are overcrowded and they're costing us too much money. The very next day, we need to outlaw bath salts. And we need to make them a felony because we need to throw people in cages that don't agree with what we agree with. Because someone might be able to take bath salts and melt them down. I don't know. They have some of them have ingredients that you can melt down, smoke it, and do whatever. But come on.
Well, along those same lines, I mean, they've already made it so that you can't buy cold medicine unless you present like 97 forms of identification and a signed affidavit that you're not going to use it to make methamphetamine. And, of course, you can't buy any more than a certain quantity that they decide is the right amount for you to buy because, God forbid, that they should allow you to make your own decision about how you're going to use what you buy, because it's really not your business to decide for yourself whether or not you're going to make something like methamphetamine or some kind of chemical out of bath salt. By the same reasoning, why not go in and outlaw whipped cream?
Well,
people can get high off of whippets, right?
Why can't you outlaw all plastics? Can't you melt those and breathe those in?
You know what? I have gotten high off of spray paint unintentionally.
Mm-hmm. Starting fluids. I mean, where does it end? And the worst part of it all is they don't just pass laws saying you can or can't do this because we are the ones that decide what you will or will not do with your body. They throw you in jail for it. And not only that, they force me and you and everyone listening to pay for it. So not only do they tell us what we will and will not do.
Not just pay for the guy to be in jail. But
Joining us now is Aaron Bennett from Far North Tactical. Go ahead.
Hey, Aaron.
But to pay for the enforcing of the law pay for everything that has to do with it.
The bureaucrats that decide what they can put into the law, they got to pay for the heat for the people to sit in there and make up the laws, and we pay for it. They make laws to throw us in jail, and they force us to pay for it. They make laws every day down there. I think Kawasaki said the other day they have over 100 bills already presented to them. I don't know how many of those are, have to do with just running the government, or how many of them have to do with throwing more people in cages. Cages equals jail if you're not smart enough to figure that out. They throw people in jail. We have an overcrowding problem, and we have people in jail for nothing except for the fact they did something that someone else decided is wrong.
Well, that's a nationwide epidemic, though. That's not like...
I know, I'm just saying.
Just
throwing that out there.
It's not just here.
Well, look at the nationwide epidemic. We had Santorum, and I can't remember his quote exactly, but he said that people think that conservatives think that we should just leave people alone to do what they want. Well, we don't believe that. That is exactly opposite of why we had an American Revolution in the 1770s. It was to leave us alone. It wasn't about taxes like the schools like to tell us. It was about individual liberty. You do what you want to yourself, as long as you don't harm someone else. You shouldn't go to jail.
It's interesting to me about how many people that call themselves conservative will call up this radio program or other programs like this one on this station and advocate for getting up in somebody else's business based on their own personal moral conviction, which, you know what, if you've got a moral conviction about something, I'm not going to try to interfere with your practice. For instance, if you feel that marriage should be between one man and one woman, good for you. I'm not going to interfere with that. I don't think the state should be involved. I don't think the state should have to be up in front with your pastor deciding whether or not you have permission to get married.
And then throwing you in jail if you decide to do something they don't agree with.
Well, but where does the state get that right?
From the people that pay it.
Well,
us.
I'm talking about the church in specific.
Where does the state get the right to step in with the church and decide who's going to get married?
Decide anything with the church, because the church gives up their sovereignty by signing the
501c3.
501c3 and submits themselves to the government. That's why they don't talk about politics or anything like that.
Yeah. And it's also, it all comes down to money. I mean, you get the tax break with the 501c3, so that you don't have to pay taxes on the church properties.
This is why we need Newt Gingrich for president.
Really?
Wow.
All right, 458-TALK is the number, and we've got 3 of the 4 lines on hold already. Good morning, caller. Who's this?
That's Carl.
Carl, what's on your mind today?
Someone there?
Well, when you guys say cut spending, that's where you're not making any friends that way. We've talked this week, you should just look at better spending of the money, because if you cut the spending, you piss off the bankers, and the bankers finance terrorists or wars in order to create more spending or more justification for spending. So instead of throwing people in jail and charging them $200, $300 a day, how about just like, if they're really good and don't break any, of the simple laws of life, like don't steal and stuff like that, and if they need some welfare, give them some welfare. The problem is, half the jobs in this country now, it seems, is like government jobs. And how do governments get their jobs? By going out and throwing people in cages.
Carl, it's interesting that you said trying to have people obey simple rules like don't steal. And how can a government enforce that when the government is involved in stealing? I mean, what is taxation? But taking by force something which does not belong to the government by simple decree. I want what you have, and I'm going to take it. Whether it is a tax on your income, or whether it's a tax on the property that you own, or whether it's a tax on your vehicle for the privilege of owning something. I mean, at what point can the government come out and tell you not to steal when that's exactly what the government does?
And there's no law needed anyway for stealing.
Yeah, well, that's an obvious thing. That's what we talk about every single Saturday. You do not harm someone else's liberty. Stealing is that. And like Steve said, it's what the government does every day. We are going to go to war. Well, I don't believe in that war. Well, you're going to finance it. Well, I don't want to finance that war. Well, then you're going to go to jail.
Same thing with abortion. Say if you don't agree with killing babies, well, too bad. You're going to pay for us to kill other people's babies.
I do not agree with abortion. I do not think that government financing should go to Planned Parenthood. Too bad. You're going to finance it.
Your money is going to go for it, whether you like it or not, whether you find it morally reprehensible or even questionable. Even if you think it ought to be up to an individual to choose whether or not they do it, you do not get to choose whether or not you are going to support someone else's choice.
And if you don't, you go to jail.
Yeah. Try not paying it and see what happens. 458 Talk is the number. Good morning, caller. Welcome to Patriot's Lament. Who's this?
It's Terry.
Gary, what's on your mind?
Hey, so can either one of you guys tell me what bath salt is?
The actual, I'm not sure if it's actual bath salt, like what they use to take a bath in, like bubble bath, or if it's a slang term, kind of like the synthetic marijuana, with going by K2 or spice. But
it's synthetic cocaine. They don't melt it down. They snort it right out of the box. Wait till one of your kids gets a hold of it. They sell it at the head shop or at the smoke shop. You know.
So you think people that do that should go straight to prison?
Oh,
felony.
The way you said, there's probably a chemical in there once you melt it down.
Okay,
It's called it bath salt, so ignoramuses like you three will really think it's bath salt.
Okay, and the point is what? It's wrong because if someone wants to do that to themselves, you should throw them in prison.
Wait till your kids get a hold of it. That's all I got to say.
Well, Kerry, hang on a second. Back it up for just a moment. Instead of engaging in ad hominem attacks and calling us names, why don't you try to engage us philosophically? Why don't you give us support for your point of view instead of just mocking it and saying...
Have you seen any of the reports of some of the people that did that, what happened to them? Did you see the guy the other day that they found out in the middle of the road naked?
That's his
crawling around
problem.
on the ground.
Why?
So you should throw him in jail as a felon and leave him there instead.
No, they're talking about throwing people in jail that are selling it. The people that are...
That's not what I read.
That's never the case anyway. I mean, do they throw the people in jail that are selling all drugs? 99% of people that go to jail get pulled over for infractions and go to prison for having substance on them. That's not people selling it.
Well, you got to stop the source. It's synthetic cocaine.
Okay, so we're going to go get the CIA and take them down for bringing cocaine into the country?
CIA. You might be involved with the CIA, but I don't think the head shops are.
Again, we're getting off track here. Philosophically,
No,
what is your opposition to it, Kerry?
It's Terry, by the way.
Okay, sorry, Terry. What's your opposition?
The opposition is that you guys are assuming that it's bath salt like you buy at Fred Meyer's.
All right, you know what? Look, let's say
it's straight out flat cocaine.
I don't even care if it is cocaine. What is your opposition to it on a philosophical ground? Do you even have one, or is it simply all some visceral reaction against it that you've been conditioned to?
Don't get your panties in a twist. It's not cocaine. It's synthetic cocaine, and it's completely different.
So if it
doesn't show up on the test like cocaine. It doesn't affect you like cocaine. It affects everybody different in wild ways. There's no way you can relate it to cocaine.
Well, you're the one that did that, and besides that, so you're saying people that do that should be thrown in jail as felons.
Terry, seriously, your reasoning here, as far as I can discern
I didn't say anything about throwing it in jail. I just said making it illegal.
But when you make things illegal, then you throw people in jail.
There you go.
All right, Terry, hang on. Back up. Can we...
Yeah. Well, let's let your kid get a hold of it and then just go crazy.
Right. So I don't agree with
put him in a hospital.
I don't agree with homosexuality, and I have 3 little boys, and I don't want any of them to be homosexuals. I mean, I really don't, but I mean, I can't decide what's going to happen with them, really.
Wow.
But let me finish.
All right.
So since I strongly am opposed to homosexuality, I guess the remedy would be to make it illegal to be homosexual and throw everybody in jail that is. Because my kids might become homosexuals if I don't throw all these other homosexuals in jail.
Well, they're definitely going to get a hold of this bath salt if you don't be careful.
Mine
Terry,
aren't.
how?
I guarantee mine aren't.
You don't even know where they're at right now, probably.
Yeah, I do. All 8 of them.
Down at the head shop buying bath salt.
Yeah, that's pretty brilliant. They're probably down buying spray paint and sniffing that. Or maybe they're getting gasoline and snorting that up or sniffing on that.
You huff gas, Josh.
Let's just hope they'll do that.
You don't
Then
sniff it.
they'll come out.
Terry, do you realize that everything that you have said against it has absolutely nothing to do with reason? I mean, you do realize that, don't you?
You should hear yourself.
I'm actually thinking quite clearly, and I believe that all of my reasoned statements have led logically one to another. Now, I'm just simply trying to engage you in a reasoned conversation, Terry, and you don't seem to be capable of doing so. So I'm going to go ahead and let you go unless you have something reasonable to say.
Go right ahead and hang up, Steve, like you do everybody else.
Well,
Okay.
I'll agree with you that it's probably a very horrible thing, and I don't want anyone in my family or anyone at all to take it.
There you
But
go.
I do not think that you should throw people in prison as felons for doing it. That's what I'm saying.
This is something new that society hasn't seen before, and
So we should
I guess
lock
we'll
people
just
up
let
in
it go
prisons.
for a while, and then we'll see if you guys change your mind in a couple years.
I still feel that. Well, I feel the same way about cocaine and methamphetamines and all
The
those.
whole war on drugs.
And a whole lot of people feel the same way about alcohol, Terry. I mean, seriously, is that are you a prohibitionist?
Hardly.
Well, I've seen plenty of people out here in the streets of Fairbanks that are
Stumbling
so
around,
drunk they
getting
can't
naked
even-
in the street.
We should lock them up as felons.
I have problems with them nonstop down at Far North Tactical.
Would they just wander in drunk buying guns?
No, they don't buy guns. They wander in drunk and harass my girlfriend that runs the shop.
And then they get escorted out.
Maybe you should sell some bath salt. Then you can jack them all up. They can just run away.
Right. You don't make any sense at all.
You know, and 458 Talk is the number. If you've got something to add to the conversation, feel free to call in. You know, it's interesting to me, Josh and Aaron, that this is something that I have seen over and over again. People that have opposition to a particular point, like whether it's bath salts or marijuana or alcohol, I very rarely hear an actual reasoned response for why they want to ban it. It's all very visceral. It's all very emotional. It's probably connected to somebody that they know that got jacked up on it, and they don't want to see that happen to somebody else. And so instead of engaging people like you do your children, Josh, in terms of making sure that they understand the risks of such behavior, making sure that they understand the unacceptable nature of such choices in their lives, and instead of doing that, they just want to ban it and hope that somehow by making this thing a forbidden fruit, that they are going to keep people away from it.
That's working with the youth on everything else.
And that's with, they want to make the state be their mommy and daddy. Well, you don't even know where your kids are. Wait till your kids... Well, my kids are my responsibility, not the state's.
And you do know where your kids are.
Yes, I do.
Because you're their father, and you actually take seriously your charge before God to actually be their parent.
Well, but that's besides the point. Josh has it right. It's not. Why would we pass that responsibility on to the state?
And
People want to give everything to the state, and then want to get mad when the state takes everything from them.
And just think about it. It is probably horrible. I don't doubt what Terry said of what it does to someone. The option that you're talking about, though, is throwing that person in prison as a felon and making everyone else for that. I do not care, and I don't mean that in the way that I don't care for the soul of the person or care for the individual. Sure, who wants someone to get all jacked up on anything like that? Who wants to see drunks walking down the middle of the street and stumbling over in the road? None of us want to see that. Is the answer to the problem making them felons and throwing them in jail? I say no, it's not. Absolutely no, because we still have people walking the streets drunk, falling over. And
you know
you'll
what?
still have people buying bath salts. You still have people smoking marijuana. You still have people doing cocaine.
Sniffing glue.
So we're going to throw everyone in jail? And all of us pay for it? I mean, it doesn't matter what your moralities are. That's great. Be the most moral person that you can be. You don't throw people in jail for disagreeing with you and forcing other people to pay for it, or you will throw them in jail too.
And if you feel so strongly about it that you want to help other people stay away from it or rescue people up off the streets who are in that situation, and you want to take them into your home and counsel them, you know what? Go for it. Volunteer. There are a whole bunch of agencies out there that work with people with addiction. There are a whole bunch. I mean, think about all the other agencies like Big Brothers Big Sisters. I mean, not agencies, but, volunteer groups that work without the government mandating that it be done, without taking your money by force and giving it. Now, I do have a problem when some of these groups start taking government money, because then it comes back to that issue of the government is now forcing you to help somebody else that doesn't necessarily even want to be helped.
And what boggles my mind is most people are small government people that are for these things, not even realizing the reason the government is so gigantically huge is because it started a long time ago when some goody two-shoes said, hey, I don't like that they do that. That should be against the law. So the government says, gladly, because they make a lot of money on prisons. Let me tell you, that's a good business to be in. So they go from there, they throw that person in jail. Well, somebody says, well, I think that this or that should be a felony also. So those people go to jail. And the government gets a little bit bigger from that. And every time we tell them, this is wrong, throw that person in jail, even though it's not harming anyone but that individual, the government's getting bigger.
458-TALK is the number if you'd like to call in and participate in the discussion. You remember President Madison? Obviously, probably not personally, but War of 1812, right, was his reign.
Absolutely.
And I believe it was under his presidency that a hurricane swept through the South and absolutely devastated some of the southern states. And some of the very, very well-meaning, good people in the U.S. House of Representatives and the Senate proposed taking some of the money from the U.S. Treasury and giving it as relief to the people down there in those states that had been hit by the hurricane. President Madison vetoed it.
As he should have.
Do you know why he vetoed it?
I do. Why don't you tell me?
Because he didn't believe that the federal government had the right to take money from people and give it to other people, in essence.
How would he know that? Besides the fact that he was the father of the Constitution, you think that had anything to do with it?
No.
Oh. Well, Thomas Jefferson said, and I know he's another one of those whacked out dead guys that we try not to think about, because if we did, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in now. He said, to compel a man to furnish contributions of money, that means to force someone to pay you money, to tax someone for the propagation of opinions which he disbelieves and abhors. So if you force to tax me to pay for things that I don't believe in, is sinful and tyrannical. So in other words, when you are, according to Thomas Jefferson, I know, what did he know?
He's not Newt Gingrich.
No, he is. He's not.
Idiot.
That's a very good point. He is definitely not Newt Gingrich. He's saying that for you to compel someone, for one, to go to jail and force someone else to pay for things that they don't believe in, you're a tyrant.
We'll be right back with more Patriots Lament. And welcome back to Patriots Lament right here on KFAR. I'm Steve Floyd, the monkey behind the machine, so to speak. And joining me here in the studio, of course, this morning are the two chief sponsors of the program, Aaron Bennett from Far North Tactical and Josh Bennett from Bighorn Enterprises. Good morning, gentlemen.
Brothers, one and all. Good morning.
One of the whole purposes in starting this program, Josh, is that you had wanted to revisit the Constitution. You had wanted to go back and look at some of these issues that are facing us today from a constitutional perspective. And I appreciate that every week, without fail, at some point in the conversation, one of the quotes from one of our founding fathers comes up as just a kind of a natural flow as part of the discussion. However, I am finding that there are very few people these days who actually know what the founders said.
I don't even understand how you can listen to the beginning of the show and the kids there say all those founders quotes and still call in and say anything.
It's a sad. It's very sad. I mean, we have to, and I don't have a whole lot of hope for an exact coming back exactly where we were. John Adams said, "Once liberty is lost, you'll never get it back." And I think that to go back to anything, we have to go to something new now. The Constitution is destroyed. It's destroyed. And I don't think it's coming back because people don't even know what it is. They don't even know what it was. They have no idea what it was for. It was not to give any man control over another man. Absolutely was not. They fought a war against England, against insurmountable odds, to say, leave us alone. A man has individual right and liberty to do as he pleases with his own body, with his own property, with his own thoughts.
Right, and the government doesn't respect any aspect of that, not even all the way down to the smallest level.
The people don't even respect any aspect of that anymore. We absolutely don't, because every day we say, I want this, and I want that, and I want you to tell that person they can't do this, and I want you to tell that person they can't do that. Your own friends do that. Your own friends want to put you in jail because we all have friends that disagree with us on things, and their point of view is, you disagree, you should go to jail for that. They aren't going to come right out and say that, but that's exactly what their point of view is. You will pay for what I believe is right, or I believe you should go to jail.
You know, in light of the ignorance about our founders and about the Constitution and about the beliefs of our founders, I mean, in some cases, what's being taught in high school is actually lies. It's actually not what they said and not what they believed. I've got a question here, and one of my Facebook friends has popped up and asked me here live in the studio. Would you?
That's high tech.
Would you Bennetts be willing to teach in a public high school?
I don't think they'd let us go to a public high school.
History.
I would.
Right, you'd be willing to.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I actually at one point did work in the public school system as a substitute teacher, and I found myself up against the machine and got in trouble for questioning whether or not the indoctrination that was going on in the classroom was appropriate. And so I was let go as a substitute teacher for questioning the propaganda that I was being forced to administer.
Right. If I taught a history class, I'd be in prison.
The whole point of liberty too, what we talk about, this stretches beyond just whether you can smoke marijuana without going to jail. I'd never have done an illegal quote unquote drug in my life. I do not like them at all. I don't like what they do to people. But it's not my job. I mean, I'm a Christian too, and my highest authority is God. He did not ever give me the authority to say, you may tell that person they cannot do this or you will throw them in jail. Was never, ever given that authority by him, who is my highest authority, right? So where do we get off doing that? How can we justify ourselves in doing that today? We have millions of people in jail. And I don't know if I've been in jail before. It sucks. Michael Anderson was in jail for 8 months.
Josh, only bad people go to jail.
Yeah, right.
You wouldn't be arrested if you hadn't done something wrong.
Done something wrong. Oh, I know. Well, I didn't do anything wrong against someone else. It was apparently the state thought I offended them. And why did I offend the state? Because someone else decided that if so-and-so does this or that, then that offends me. So that should offend the state. So they elect people to go down to wherever, Juneau, Boise, Newt Gingrich, and say, pass these laws, and if anyone does these things, throw them in jail. And you can go to jail for months and months and months. You want to talk about destroying families? How about taking a dad away from their kids? And everything isn't just, well, he was a drug user and he was abusing his kids. People don't just go to jail for things like that. They go to jail for stupid things.
Can I give you a quick example, Josh?
Really quick.
Okay.
I'm timing you.
Our cousin Isaac lives in Idaho, and I was talking to him on Facebook. He lost his job for about 4 weeks and had to get another job. And in the internship there, getting his new job, he didn't have enough money to re-up his insurance on his vehicle. He got pulled over for driving without insurance. So they revoked his license for driving without insurance, and he still had to go to work because he has a family and a bunch of kids. And he got pulled over again while driving without a driver's license that he lost for not having insurance because he'd lost his job for 4 weeks. And now he's got to go to prison for 3 months.
That makes a lot of sense.
And he sent me a message and said, I don't know what I'm going to do because I'm going to lose the job I just got because I'm going to prison for 3 months.
How many people did he kill when he was driving without his insurance card?
I'm not for knowing, but I know that
none.
He told me that he's going to lose his house and everything that he bought because he can't sustain after already taking a beating from losing his job and getting a different one. But being out of work for 3 months and just sitting in prison, he's going to lose everything.
Well, that'll teach him. That'll teach him to do what the state says is not right. That'll teach his children to obey the state, or we will take your father away. And when you're a father, you obey us, or we will take you away. What good does that do to the kids that are sitting there? We're so worried about the families, and, but look at how it destroys the families. How does it destroy a family when you take away their dad and throw them in jail for months at a time? What's that do to a kid? I know. I saw it happen at my house with Mike Anderson's kid when they came and hauled him off. His kid was terrified. And he was totally destroyed for weeks.
We all know that Mike deserved it.
I know. I kind of want him to go back.
He didn't vote for Newt Gingrich.
He won't vote for Newt Gingrich.
458-TALK is the number. This is Degenerated. Good morning, caller. Who's this?
This is Randy.
Randy, good morning.
Hello, Randy.
Hi there. I kind of basically agree with your libertarian sentiment on the drug use. It seems like an adult should be able to use what they want, do what they want with their bodies, including going on a parasail off a mountaintop or something like that if they want to. But anyway, I do think, though, that the government, if someone is taking government checks, welfare, that they should be able to do a spot check drug test and make it illegal for them, or at least the penalty would be taking away their welfare payments. And another thing, for kids, if a pusher confronts the little kid after school after he's walking home and convinces him to take this free sample of cocaine so that he'll be forever dependent and have to give his lunch money for his desire that he'll build up, I think that should be illegal. And I was wondering what you thought about that.
Good question.
I wouldn't send my kid to the public school in the first place.
That's kind of an interesting.
But did you go to public school, Randy?
Randy?
Yes, I did.
How many pushers did you see doing that to little kids?
None.
But what if they had been there?
Well, that was really my point. Everybody wants to talk about the what ifs, and I'm an extremely popular guy. I have a lot of friends everywhere. I mean, as far as guys my age go, I hang out with a lot of people, and I've yet ever in my life, and I've lived in a lot of different places in America on the West Coast anyway, I've never heard anybody talk about the pushers at school. Ever.
Well, I thought there's lots of pushers. I mean, not in an elementary school maybe, but aren't there a bunch of don't they have drugs slip past between people at the school? I don't know. I've never seen it myself, but I've sure heard about it.
Well, I think if I
heard about it from who? From the people that are experiencing these pushers, or from the
politicians that are trying to get laws passed?
Let's take it this way: if there are so many of them, and it's such a problem, why are people sending their children to public school?
Well, it's cheaper, I guess.
Well, it's
only cheaper because you're forced to pay for it whether you go or not.
$78 billion a year, the Department of Education. I can understand what you're
still
saying.
Never have enough money.
Yes.
Never.
I can understand exactly what you're saying, Randy. I would prefer, if there are pushers there, let the dad go down there and kick the crap out of them.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I did see it one time. I have DVDs of Dragnet. They're based on true stories. And Joe Friday got called in, and there was a kid pushing, let me think. Yeah, well, as I recall, pushing marijuana. I mean, they went to a movie theater, and all the kids were, I think they had to be exaggerating a little bit because they said they were tearing up the movie theater, and I don't think marijuana does that, but in the Dragnet movie there that they said that they were tearing things up, and so somebody was pushing the marijuana, and Joe Friday and his sidekick had to put a stop to that. Find the bad guys.
I can tell you from my experience of my youth, which everybody else should be able to look at their own experience of their youth. I don't remember anybody. I saw marijuana. I saw people do drugs. I don't remember anybody pushing those on me. And everybody that I've ever seen do drugs in my life, I never watched any of those people have anything pushed on them.
And again, it falls back to, with the movie theater, Randy, I'd say it falls back to the parents' responsibility. Where are the kids at? Where are the kids at? Not supposed to end the phrase with substance.
Yeah.
Where are the kids? Why do you have them down there with no overwatch at all? Why do you put them in a situation where you are allowing them to be pushed on with some punks with drugs?
Hey, look at the Fairbanks Theater. Every weekend it's loaded with kids from 12 to 16 that have nowhere else to go, and the parents just go and drop their kids off there. It's like a daycare. There'll be 5,000 of them packed in there, and none of them are even going to watch the movie.
458-TALK is the number.
Randy.
Thanks for the call. Good morning. This is Patriots Lament. Who's on our phone?
We should pass a log.
Hey, who is this?
Cecily.
Good morning, Cecily.
Good morning. I just was looking at that same thing of the God gave everybody free will, and when you vote, you take away another person's free will, and also this thing about adultery. It says it's to make impure. It has nothing to do with whether a man or woman, are cheating or not. It's making things impure. It seems to me that most of everything that you buy in this grocery store is impure. And I have also read about opium. It has 28 different properties that match your body's properties, and if it's done for 3 days, it balances you out so that your body can heal itself. Instead, they tore it all up into little different pieces that make it addictive. And what happened is that the medicines and the foods and the water and everything has been adulterated, and that's pretty much a crime against the Ten Commandments, and not that very many people pay attention to those.
Well, Cecily, I don't want to go too far down that road, but I'm
But it's
pretty
not-
sure opium's very addictive in its natural form. In fact, it's the most addictive substance there is.
But as a medicine, it balances it matches 28 properties in your body. If someone decides, when people get addicted and this stuff, it's through miseducation. They're not doing it to bring health to their body. They're doing it to escape from the world that was created by a bunch of people who wanted to push other people around. The idea is if somebody wants to be totally addicted to something, that's their choice, not someone else to say yes or no that they can.
Well, and Cecily, I mean, think about how many people in this country alone are addicted to food. Look at how many fat people we have around us.
Well, that's their choice. That's the thing is when you can, if you're,
But it's so unhealthy. The government needs
but
to
they
take
don't
care of
care
it.
if it's healthy for
We
you
need
or
to
not.
regulate that.
When you go into economics, the first thing is if you want to make some money on something, you make it illegal, and that's. I read that when I was 14, when my older brothers were going to college. I said, "Gee, that's amazing. Anything you want to make money on, you make illegal," and that's they did it in Russia with the plastic bags. The most exciting thing that when I went to visit Russia the first time, is I had plastic bags. Everybody wanted them. It was like the most exciting thing. So if you tell somebody no, which is like in the first lesson in the Bible, they're going to do it. Like education, say, if you eat from the tree of knowledge, you will be thrown from the Garden of Eden, and so they ate from the tree of knowledge because they were told no.
The forbidden fruit, exactly. Cecily, thanks very much for the phone call. Really appreciate you. Sam, by the way, in the chat room has a comment for you, Cecily. He says, hey, Cecily, reality is for people who can't face drugs. 458-TALK is the number. Good morning, caller. Who's this?
Good morning, Frank Kearney here.
Good morning, Frank.
You guys keep talking about marijuana. You're going to jail. You're driving me to smoke.
So does that mean that we're pushers?
Yeah. I want to share this. You can find it on the website. Liberty Preservation Act is to introduce it in your state, county, city, or town to stop the National Defense Authorization Act. I see the Tennessee legislature got a bill. I like this. Let me share this.
The Tennessee bill also makes it a Class E felony for any official, agent, or employee of the United States government to enforce or attempt to enforce any federal law, order, rule, or regulation that is beyond the authority granted to the federal government pursuant to the United States Constitution, and includes provisions for kidnapping charges if a federal agent were to detain a U.S. citizen in Tennessee under the National Defense Authorization. How sweet it is that we could actually get a law like that to enforce it.
Yeah, I think I could actually back up someone going to a cage for that.
Mm-hmm. Right. And also I sent, the Virginia was the first state to introduce a bill against the Section 1021, the one that Congressman, our presidential candidate, Ron Paul, has introduced to repeal Section 1028 regarding due process. I sent that down there, but I made it clear with Tammy Wilson and John Coggill, we don't need resolutions. We need an act, a state nullification to make this happen. These resolutions are just flyby. They do send a strong message to our legislature, but at the same time, Tammy Wilson can't fool around with a resolution down there. She's got to introduce something that has some teeth. Thank you, and I appreciate the show.
Thank you very much, Frank. I appreciate it. I don't want to go too far down this particular road, but in terms of putting our trust in politicians and in their ability to get things done, whether it's passing a resolution or passing a new law, I'm not really sure that is going to lead us to the freedom that we desire.
No, I understand that, and I also understand Frank's side of it too, though, that it would be nice to have some people stand up for your rights, which is what they're supposed to be there for in the first place.
True, but I mean, how does the federal government get the ability to enforce most of its laws?
The state.
It's through the states, and it is through the state taking the federal money that they keep us in line.
Yes, that they take from us.
Exactly.
That they give to the states to throw us in jail.
If at some point if one of our states refused to comply with whatever federal regulation it was, whether it had to do with air quality, with the EPA, with our, oh my goodness, people are burning wood in their stoves, or whether it has to do with something like the Indefinite Detention Act, if the state of Alaska were to simply draw a line and say no, then the very first thing the federal government would do would be to threaten to take away the federal funds.
Yay.
What if they did? Great. What if they did?
We would have weeping and gnashing of teeth, and probably couldn't afford to send the people to Juneau. Yay! Yeah, they couldn't pass a bunch of laws to steal money from us, to throw us in jail. I'm liking it.
Real briefly, we've got about 9 minutes left in the program. We've heard an awful lot from Frank Turney and from other folks who have been strong Ron Paul supporters for a number of years. And the consistent message that we're getting from the media at large is that Ron Paul is a crackpot, or he is marginal at best, that he has no chance of winning. Everything you hear from the politicians, from even the local representatives of the Republican Party or whatever else about Ron Paul is, I don't agree with his foreign policy. And yet, most people cannot define his foreign policy when they press him on it.
Well, if they would read Madison or Jefferson or Washington or Patrick Henry, they would understand what Ron Paul's foreign policy is, because that is his foreign policy, what the founders that wrote the Constitution, the guys that started the country. If you don't go with what the guys that started it, with their intent, you're going to lose the whole stinking thing.
If you look at the four, obviously, you look at Barack Obama on the Democrat side, he is all for intervening with Iran. You look at the four people that are on the Republican side right now, 3 of the 4 are all for intervening against Iran. Only Ron Paul says no, and everybody says, oh, that's so irresponsible. If we don't do something, Iran's going to develop a nuclear missile that can hit the United States. I just handed you an intelligence estimate from Debka.com that shows that, in fact, Iran already has that capability, that they are now putting the finishing touches on a missile that can reach the United States, and that we could...
Right. It is our cry to go to war against Iran, does that have anything to do with them being nuclear capable? How come we're not having a cry to go to war with India or Pakistan? Because they're not crazy?
Well, no, I'm not sure if that has anything to do with it.
Crazy?
Look at where Pakistan's not sitting on the Strait of Hormuz. Pakistan doesn't control the flow of oil, Aaron. I've just handed you another intelligence estimate there about what's going on out in the Indian Ocean. There are 2 small islands.
Is it really about the flow of oil, Steve, or is it about propping up the U.S. dollar because Ahmadinejad refuses to trade in the U.S. dollar?
Yeah, exactly. And India just announced that they will no longer be using dollars to buy oil from Iran, but they are going to be using gold. How many troops do we have right now in the Indian Ocean? Do you see that estimate there, Josh?
50, there'll be 100,000 there by the end of the month.
By the end of February, there will be 100,000 U.S. troops poised to go into Iran. Now, I'm sure that nobody is planning on actually starting a war. How many nations right now currently have naval representatives in the Persian Gulf? Do you know?
Everyone.
Every single nation that has a navy now has at least one boat out there in the Persian Gulf. It is not just a tinderbox. It is a tinderbox with gunpowder around it, and it's already on fire.
Right, and so you have Syria and Libya, right?
Yeah.
They're destroyed. We're talking about...
Syria is not yet,
yeah.
but it's on its way. Libya is destroyed. Egypt is destroyed.
Okay, Egypt, sorry. But Libya, right?
Yeah, Libya.
Sorry. Libya right now, they're talking about the crisis there. They're talking about the crisis in Syria on the way over here. I was listening to it on the news. They're talking about how we got to go in and they're trying to pass UN resolutions to basically decimate them.
Intervene!
But what do they all have in common? What do they have in common with Iran? What do they have in common with Iraq in 2002?
Not using the U.S. dollar?
Not using the U.S. dollar.
Ooh.
Wah, wah, wah.
Going down.
Saddam Hussein came out and announced that he was going to quit trading in the U.S. dollar right after we declared that we were going to go to war with Afghanistan. And immediately our focus was switched over to him having weapons of mass destruction. And we went in there and kicked the bejesus out of him under the guise of stopping terrorism. He didn't have any of those things, but we did prop up the U.S. dollar again.
This goes right back to what we started the show out with, because I know that there are people listening. We all know people that think we should go to war with Iran. I don't. But there are people that say, well, we should. Well, I don't think we should go. Well, I think we should, and I think that you should pay for it, even though you don't agree with it. Well, I don't believe in the war. I don't want to pay for it. Well, if you don't pay for it, I think you should go to jail.
But, Josh, we can't have that madman getting his hands on a nuke.
He's already got one, Aaron. You know, take it back. This is what really gets me. If you put it in a small scale, let's say Josh, Aaron, and I are all neighbors, just for a point of argument. We all live on the same street.
I'd move.
Okay, well, you probably, I would support that. Now, if for some reason, Aaron, you and I have some kind of a conflict going on between us, let's say that we have a bad business deal. I have said I'm not going to do business with you anymore. You don't like me.
I would you.
You go to Josh and you say, hey, Steve over there, he's dangerous. I think that we should go and kick his butt. And Josh says, nah, there's no reason to. Then you say, well, I heard that Steve is going to attack you, Josh. Steve's been stockpiling weapons. We need to go take those. We need to go take those guns away.
Bring it on
from Steve. Josh, on a personal level, would you, as an individual, have any right to come over and decide what I have in my house, what kind of guns I'm armed with? Do you have the right to do that on a personal level, person to person?
Yeah,
no.
Steve, are you a madman?
Even if I was a madman, which I probably am, I'm getting mad. Even if does one person have the right to go into somebody else's house and take away his guns?
That depends. If you were messing with my monetary system, then probably.
What if, now flip it around the other side. What if Iran decided that they didn't like the fact that the United States has nuclear weapons and they want to come in and disarm us? Would we stand up and fight?
We're not madmen.
Yeah, our foreign policy is not the policy of madmen. Mm-hmm. Right. No, I totally get what you're saying. And absolutely, there's a bunch of dogs.
Yeah, it's the Yukon Quest starting right now. We're getting ready to in about 2 minutes. By the way, in the chat room, Jeremiah says that without our terrible sanctions in Iran, they would not have the support of their own people. Our sanctions stir the pot of nationalism in Iran and allow the crazy folks in charge to maintain power.
Absolutely right.
And that's what Ron Paul has been saying, and Ron Paul gets painted as a crazy man for suggesting that somehow it is because of our foreign policy stirring the pot in the Middle East that has led to the problems that we have now.
You start starving people, and you wonder why they get mad at you. That's really odd.
Well, I mean, Iran comes out and says they're going to trade no longer in the U.S. dollar, and Russia and China both agree that that's a good idea. And if we don't go in and destroy them, then we face the real possibility of our dollar collapsing across the board.
Right. The fact that oil is bought in U.S. dollars is the only reason why we have a U.S. dollar right now.
No doubt. Let's take it, though. Let's play Randy's game of, well, what if, just for a moment. What if, when we try to take on Iran, we get hit with a nuclear blast that takes out one or more of our U.S. cities? What if we end up getting hit with a EMP that knocks our entire country back into the 18th century?
Which I think people like to talk about EMPs to make themselves feel better.
Well,
I'm pretty sure we just
look at the CIA last week, or maybe it was this week, said that Iran is preparing for attacks on U.S. soil.
Mm-hmm. Well, if that were to happen, what would happen to our dollar then? What if we just stayed out of it?
That sounds like a good idea.
World War III.
Before this thing ends on the deal, imagine if you made divorce illegal. How many lives does that destroy? How many children does that destroy?
Put them all in jail.
If you get divorced, go to jail.
Don't touch that dial. Fairbanks is listening. 660 AM, KFAR.